Defeat is not required for collapse. Sometimes the structure that creates expansion quietly removes the conditions that allow it to endure. This essay traces that structure. By the end, the rise and disappearance of steppe empires will appear less like dramatic reversals and more like mechanical consequences of terrain, distance, and resource flow. This matters because the pattern repeats across centuries. Vast dominion forms without walls and then dissolves without final battle. The absence of a decisive enemy can conceal the presence of a decisive constraint. Across Eurasia stretches a continuous belt of grassland, running from the plains of Hungary through southern Russia and Kazakhstan to Mongolia and Manchuria. It is a corridor thousands of miles long, treeless in many regions, open to horizon in every direction. Rainfall varies, but is often insufficient for dense agriculture. The soil supports grasses more reliably than crops. Rivers exist, but many run shallow or freeze solid in winter. Winters arrive with prolonged cold. Summers dry the surface into dust. The steppe favors mobility. Herd animals convert grass into stored energy. Horses graze where plows cannot root. Population density remains low relative to river valleys and coastal plains. Settlements are temporary, often circular, designed for assembly and disassembly. Wood is scarce in many regions. Felt and leather dominate construction. Grain can be acquired through trade or movement, but is not abundant within the grassland core. To the south and east lie agrarian civilizations, China's river basins, Persia's irrigated lands, the Indian subcontinent. To the west, forest zones and European plains. Between these settled regions, the steppe forms a bridge and a barrier simultaneously. Caravans cross it, armies ride across it. No mountain chain seals it entirely. No ocean defines its edge. Its borders blur into farmland. Silence. On open grassland, speed becomes infrastructure. A mounted archer can travel dozens of miles in a day. Communication rides on horseback. Supply moves on hoof rather than wheel. The absence of forests permits wide maneuver. There are no permanent fortifications in the central steppe, because permanence is a liability where grass cycles with season and herds must rotate to avoid depletion. Scale begins to matter here. A confederation of tribes can assemble rapidly, drawn together by access to pasture and promise of distribution. Authority spreads along riding distance rather than along roads. The distance between camps is measured in days, not in walls or gates. Expansion outward into agrarian regions brings access to grain, silk, metal, and coin. Tribute can be extracted and redistributed through existing mobility networks. The empire that forms in this environment does not resemble a sedentary state. It is a layered system of allegiance anchored in movement. Its cohesion depends on circulation, of herds, of spoils, of seasonal migration. As long as expansion continues, new pasture and new tribute reinforce internal bonds. Redistribution replaces taxation. Loyalty follows flow. A shift. The grassland does not expand when the empire does. Its ecological ceiling remains constant. Overgrazing reduces yield. A dry cycle tightens pasture. Herd sizes fluctuate with weather patterns that ignore political boundaries. The larger the confederation grows, the more animals concentrate within particular corridors. Mobility solves scarcity temporarily by shifting location, but the total carrying capacity of the steppe remains finite. Now, consider distance. When mounted forces extend beyond the steppe into forest, mountain, or river valley, their speed advantage diminishes. Forest slows cavalry. Mountains fragment formations. Rivers require bridging. The empire's administrative center may remain mobile, but the territories it absorbs are not. They require garrisons, local intermediaries, seasonal oversight. Expansion stretches the system along two axes, ecological base and territorial control. The ecological base remains grass-dependent. The territorial control includes farmland, cities, irrigation works, systems that operate on fixed cycles. Grain harvests cannot relocate with herds. Irrigation canals require maintenance. Bureaucracies require records. Another pause. The steppe empire often solves this by leaving agrarian regions administratively intact, extracting tribute rather than replacing structure. Yet tribute introduces dependency. Grain and manufactured goods begin to flow inward to sustain elites whose wealth now depends partly on sedentary production. The mobile core becomes accustomed to external supply. Seasonal movement persists, but its incentives change. Instead of riding outward solely for pasture or plunder, elites now require predictable inflow from fixed regions. The empire's rhythm begins to synchronize with harvest cycles it does not directly control. This synchronization narrows flexibility. Drought on the steppe once required migration. Now drought coincides with obligations to defend tribute routes. Caravans must pass safely across thousands of miles. Bottlenecks appear, river crossings, mountain passes, caravanserai clusters. Control of these nodes becomes essential, a widening of scale. The larger the confederation, the more distant its outer edges. Communication across the Eurasian steppe, even by horse, requires weeks. Orders travel outward. Information travels back. Local commanders interpret conditions independently while awaiting confirmation. The absence of natural defensive barriers means that internal rivalries can move as freely as external threats. Succession does not occur inside stone palaces. It occurs across open space, among moving groups whose loyalty aligns with distribution. When expansion slows, because neighboring agrarian states fortify, or because tribute stabilizes rather than increases, the surplus available for redistribution tightens. Competition does not begin with ambition, it begins with arithmetic. Herd sizes fluctuate. Tribute shipments vary with harvests and unrest in conquered territories. A confederation built on expanding circulation now must maintain equilibrium without growth. The steppe's ecology does not absorb shock easily. A series of harsh winters, known in some regions as decisive, can decimate livestock. A single season can reduce the material base of thousands of households. Silence again. Without herds, mobility contracts. Without mobility, communication slows. Without rapid redistribution, allegiance thins. Peripheral tribes reconsider alignment not because of ideology, but because pasture and protection become uncertain. The empire does not require invasion to weaken. It requires contraction of flow. Meanwhile, the agrarian territories once subdued begin to reassert local rhythms. Irrigated. Lands continue to produce grain. Bureaucracies continue to record and store. Their structures are less mobile, but more stable against ecological fluctuation. As tribute extraction weakens, these regions do not collapse immediately. They revert to internal systems that predate steppe control. A subtle inversion occurs. The steppe core, once the dynamic center, becomes dependent on edges that are structurally more stable. But those edges do not depend symmetrically on the core. Trade routes can shift southward or northward. Maritime routes expand over centuries, reducing reliance on overland corridors. When caravans thin, the steppe's position as intermediary loses value. Another shift of scale. Consider the Silk Road corridors. They thrive when long-distance exchange is secure across contiguous territories. A unified steppe empire can provide that security through deterrence and patrol. But as fragmentation begins, because circulation falters, security declines. Merchants divert routes. Revenue diminishes further. The mechanism feeds itself. There is no decisive battle here, no final siege that marks the end. Instead, internal partitions harden. Tribal groupings withdraw toward sustainable pasture zones. Former provinces negotiate autonomy with nearby agrarian powers. The imperial title may persist for years, even decades, but its functional radius shrinks. Recognition emerges slowly. Riders still move. Banners still fly. Yet the distances they cover no longer bind the same expanse. The empire's map contracts not through conquest by an external force, but through the reassertion of ecological limits. One question forms quietly. If expansion is the condition for cohesion, what happens when there is no remaining direction to expand that increases net flow? There is no dramatic answer, only geography. The steppe remains what it has always been, grass dependent on rainfall, horizon open but finite. Herds require rotation, clans require distribution. Trade requires secure passage. Each of these conditions operates before proclamation, before law. In the absence of new pasture or new tribute, the empire's internal mathematics tightens again. A confederation that once spanned continents reduces to clusters orbiting reliable water sources. Mobility continues, but its radius shortens. The external territories that once defined imperial scale become adjacent civilizations once more. Nothing has been defeated in a final sense. The ecological ceiling persists. The climatic variability persists. The corridor across Eurasia remains open. And so, in later centuries, new confederations form along the same grasslands, assembling through the same mechanics of mobility and redistribution. The pattern is not a story of failure. It is a cycle embedded in terrain. Expansion amplifies cohesion until it collides with carrying capacity. Integration of sedentary wealth stabilizes authority until it introduces dependency. Distance unifies through speed until scale exceeds the rate of communication. Collapse without defeat is not disappearance. It is dispersal back into ecological equilibrium. The banners lower gradually. Camps separate by greater intervals. Tribute becomes trade. Trade becomes occasional contact. The empire dissolves into the grass that supported it, and the grass continues, indifferent to scale.